We're all very happy for Dan, and we're happy we have a lot of funny stories, and you're going to hear a lot of those. It's also, for many of us, our absolute, probably favorite boss that we've ever had. And so we're going to, a lot of people are going to speak. Everybody get comfortable. Actually, since it's Dan, I think we should probably. Eric, I see you got the memo. Anybody else want to? Ruinski, good. It's a hashtag.
No, only one side in the front. So
Okay, all right. Is this it?
That's it.
Yeah, okay. So everybody got the look for Dan. Dan had sworn that we were going to be having this in the old building. He said absolutely there was no way this building was going to be ready by May the 4th.
We can still do it now.
And as we all know, Dan is great at predictions. By Midway is on here somewhere, if you remember. Dan once famously said everyone should invest in Midway Airlines. Anybody ever heard of Midway Airlines in the last 15 years? So that was one of those predictions. But we've got a lot of people that want to talk. So first off, Mary Cornatzer, come up here.
You have to shout.
And you have to talk loud.
Dan knows I can talk loud, don't you, Dan? Yes. So, I have worked with Dan many, many years. 22, I think you said, in my last week or something like that. And, all years, Dan has told me that I reminded him of his sister. And I always thought that was a really sweet thing. And then I learned today that his sister terrorized him. So, that was a good thing to learn here. But I asked some of our former business colleagues, what I should mention today about Dan. And someone said, mention the butt downs. Because, you see, Dan carries his phone in his pocket now, but for years it was in his back pocket. And he would go to home, and then we would have these strange messages. And we all knew what Dan had eaten for fast food for dinner the night before on the way home, because we would get a call from Dan, it would be on our message, and it would just be what Dan was ordering. And by the way, Dan was not eating fast food because Calvin would cook for him. It's just he never left work in time to get home for dinner. So, And then also, Dan used to always talk about things coming in over the transom. Most of the young reporters had no idea what a transom was. So you kind of had to tell them about that. He was also kind of notorious for his planning. And so when Dan got the job here,
Don't think about Dan very much. It's a special occasion. And what I realized is that there's really a magic about Dan Barkin. He can see things that you don't see and make you see them. He can see things about you and make you see them too. I don't know who the best hire he ever made was, but based on this room, I guarantee you it was a great one. Thank you.
But you have to get the look.
I was going to undo my shoelaces.
Well, you can undo your shoe. You have to untuck half your shirt. Untuck half your shirt. Yeah, you have to untuck half your shirt. You're not going to. Okay, all right. Now you got the Barkin look.
I'm trying to do the sag.
All right, be careful with that.
These have all been great. I get a kick out of y'all talking like about how Dan knew so much about your family and stuff. I have 3 daughters. Until recently, he thought I had 2. So I said, no, Dan, we have a 3rd daughter, Grace. She's 22. She's a senior.
You thought I had 1 kid too, don't worry.
I'm glad Dan. I'm glad Dan took such a big interest in your family. Dan and I worked together for 15 years, and unfortunately for Dan, that means that he had to have a weekly meeting with me every year for 15 years. We kind of update each other. And as I tell my 3 daughters, the secret to life is a good filing system, both digital and print. And so I have a Dan Barkin file that when the biography about you is written, my file is where it is. But it comes in really handy when you're doing something like this, and you'll find out in a minute. Dan has a well-deserved reputation for being a really hard worker. And you editors know he's always pitching in to help, and we're all going to really miss that. And he's always taking initiative to do things. But there were some times when you had to draft Dan to do things, and it wasn't really always willing. And that just leads me to an email exchange I have here. This is an email from another executive editor, and it wasn't Robin and it wasn't me. And I didn't know about it. It was a long email about how our environmental coverage was slipping. And this executive editor didn't send it to me, she sent it to Dan. Yeah. And then Dan forwarded it to me with a little note at the top. And I could actually hear him clenching his teeth as I read this email. I am working on this along with a few other things. If the environment has become the top coverage issue, I will move it up ahead of Wake County, trash pickup, presidential Senate coverage, Southeast Zone hiring, and the Orange County merger. Now, I did give all those other things to Dan to do. I said, okay, Dan's having a bad day, so I'll just kind of let it rest for a while, okay? This is on a Tuesday. I can tell you the date if you'd like to know. But I had football tickets to the NC State Wake Forest football game that Saturday, and I couldn't go. So I offered Dan my tickets through an email. And I get this terse 12-word response. This is on Tuesday. The football game is on Saturday. Thanks, but I'm going to be working on the environmental coverage side. About that time, anonymously on my desk appears this book. Working with you is killing me. Now, I don't recognize these names, but it sure sounds like they used to work at the News and Observer. If you read this book, you'll know how to manage an ill-tempered boss before he or she explodes. You'll know how to detach from annoying coworkers whose irritating habits ruin the day. I like this one. You'll defend yourself from idea-pilfering rivals. You'll get out of the grip of toxic relationships. You'll parent, interesting choice of words, your difficult employees to get the results you want. The toughest part of any job is dealing with people around you. And so, although this book was given to me anonymously, Dan, I will now return it to you. It is signed by me, and soon we will get Melanie Sill to sign it.
next book club? Yes.
So
that's
it might have been hard for Dan to work with me, but for me, it was always a pleasure to work with him. He's really been a remarkable colleague. He's generous with his time. He's extremely smart. He gives really good advice, smart, thoughtful, analytical, wise. We've had a lot of challenges in the last 10 years, and Dan has been a great partner to me. We had to work through a lot of situations where all of the choices were bad, and we were just trying to make the least bad decision and try to keep this newsroom as strong as we could possibly be moving forward. Dan's really good at thinking through the challenges, analyzing the options, and making an astute recommendation. Some of you remember Vice President Dan Quayle, some of you probably don't. But Dan Quayle was not our smartest elected politician ever. And he used to really rely on a very bright conservative thinker and writer named Bill Kristol. And Bill Kristol was known as Dan Quayle's brain. And Dan Quayle has been, for the last 15 years, my brain. And so Monday, I have no brain. And it's going to be a really unsettling experience for me. But as I told Robin recently, and she included in her email about Dan, Dan is good at all the things that editors have to do. He's good with the stories, he's good with the people, he's good at both the big picture and small details. And that's a really rare trait. That's a really unusual brain, a rare combination who can be a really first-rate analyst who can take really difficult problems and processes and break them apart, and at the same time see a bigger picture. And Dan was able to do that. And he did it with a style that is uniquely Barkin-esque, and you all know about that style. If you watch Dan eat a donut, you know there's a certain style to it. If you watch Dan spit tobacco juice, there's a certain style to it. If you watch him walk across the newsroom to the copy machine with his shirt off, there's a certain style to it. Someday, someone's going to write a novel set in this newsroom, and there's going to be a character, really compelling, interesting, quirky, brilliant, smart character named something like Stan Larkin. And he'll be the protagonist of the novel. But underlying this Barkin-esque style was really great personal integrity. Dan was an honest broker who treated people well and was always working towards solution. Dan has done a million things that most of you don't know about. And that was part of his job, was to anticipate problems before they became problems and take problems and solve them and do that kind of seamlessly behind the scenes. And he was remarkable in doing that. And I'm going to tell you about one thing that I don't think anyone in here other than me knows about. But at one point in our office in Raleigh, there were two high-level McClatchy employees really didn't get along. The relationship had completely broken down. The problem was they were too much alike. They were two driven, type A people, and they had stopped talking to each other. And what they did was they communicated through Dan. And they knew that he understood what they were talking about, and so they communicated through Dan. And they did that because they trusted his intellect, but they really trusted him. They trusted him as an honest broker. And in the end, this trust thing is the most important thing, I think, that editors and newsroom managers had, and Dan always excelled at it. I've written 15 annual reviews about Dan Barkin, and every one of them has been sterling. In one of them I wrote, if we named a newsroom MVP, most valuable player, Dan would be a finalist every year. And to me, Dan has been our MVP. He's been our indispensable player. And Dan, I don't have an MVP trophy for you, but you always have my respect and deep admiration.
All right. Scott Sharp has something, and he has
Referred to Dan as a parent, and I've kind of never thought of him as a parent. He's more of that batshit crazy uncle on your motorcycle. When you went to visit him, you never know if he was going to be graced or not. So, but his sense of humor and allowing himself to be the target of my sense of humor has gotten me through the last more than a decade.
You want to share your thoughts or open the presents first?
Let me share my thoughts.
The floor is yours.
Just tuck my shirt I'm gonna miss this place, and when I say this place, I mean you, because I've only been here a few days, but it's nice, it really is. This is harder than it looks, doing journalism. What you do, I have from time to time had people say to me, people who weren't in the business, that they always had a hankering to write, or they had a hankering to take pictures. And I think, well, you may be a good writer, but can you gain the confidence of people like Dan Kane, who will tell you things that could get them fired, and you have to keep this in confidence. Can you write a game story when you don't know what the outcome is going to be, like Joe or Jonathan, and then top it at the buzzer and push the button? Can you do that? When the governor's press secretary or the Senate president's muscle calls up to yell, and you're in the right, can you stand up to that, like Jordan and his folks, Len and Will and Andy? Can you do that? Can you maintain the focus to shoot Christian Laettner sinking one of the most famous turnaround jump shots in history, like Chuck Liddy did? Or be compassionate and sensitive enough to get a family to let you visually document their stories and often their pain, like Corey did, like Casey and Julie. There are people who say that they can write, they can shoot, but photojournalists like Willett and Ethan and Travis are great, not only because they can capture the decisive moment, but they're smart enough and tough enough to get into the right position to capture the decisive moment. I don't know 1% of what I should know about visual journalism to discuss it intelligently, but I do know one thing. If you've never covered a hurricane as a reporter, the photographer will keep you alive. Okay? Listen to the photographer. Okay. You're lucky to be led by the best group of editors I've ever worked with. Mary, Scott, Steve, Thad, Jessica, Jordan, Eric, Deborah, Sarah. Not only are these good editors, but they really work well together. The past 10 years have been difficult, and these folks have really stepped up and provided leadership and figured out how to overcome all manner of obstacles. And now Sarah has the weekend rotation. So this is what happens in 22 years. My daughter Hillary was 9 going on 10 when we came here, and George was 7. Now Hillary has 2 kids, 2 little kids. There are a few pictures of them on Facebook. And she's a guidance counselor at Clayton High School, for goodness sakes. And George is in DC working for a tech company. And he turned 29 yesterday, 29. And I'm pretty confident that they're going to get married. And I am. She gave him an apple lunch for his birthday. My wife is retired, and so we'll spend our time chasing after Charlotte and Asher on the beach this summer. And it'll be nice to sleep late, read, and smoke some cheap cigars. So we'll spend a lot of time with family. But you are also my family. We've been through a lot together. You have a lot of character and a lot of courage. People may think that to be a journalist you have to be a good writer or to be able to capture good images. But what I know is that it really requires character and courage. And there's a tough spirit about you that I have always admired. So God bless you and keep you. And God bless you after the News Observer. Thanks.
It all goes together.
Oh, that's nice. Okay.
Yes, yes.
That's nice. This?
Yes. It is. Put it on. Break it.
Please hang on. It's a metal detector. Barkin for the beach. Okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's nice. Yeah. Oh, look, yeah, okay, 70, okay, good. Okay, good, yeah. Oh, good. No press. Oh, and these are, shovels. Oh, they're gonna love this.
Hey, hey.
Okay, cool. This is great. Now, that's what I wanted.
So you're ready for the beach?
Oh my God. Oh my God. I'm like Charlotte's birthday. Oh my God, it's an apple. Wow.
So you have to get married too.
Yes. So George doesn't
Now
have
it's really funny because George got this like yesterday, and he was like trash talking me all day long about my Fitbit. Like, I got an Apple Watch and you got a Fitbit, and so now I got this. So yeah.
Why are you trash talk?
I can't wait to
in your face, George.
Yeah, yeah. This is really great. I really appreciate this, and you know, I honestly did not recognize who you were talking about for the last 45 minutes. Because all I have tried to do is just come in and do, you know, just a day's work. That's all I've been trying to do for 20 years. It's just you know, my philosophy is 95% of life is just showing up on time, and you know, so that's what I've tried to do on day's work. And you know, you said very kind things, but you know, I was just trying to do what you do every day, which is just sort of bring your best game. So thank you very much, and let's have cake.
All right, let's move the party. You were in the video.